Suppose you were magically transported to a spot in Texas. Your first impression would be remarkably diverse depending on where you land. You would be in one of 10 large but distinctly different ecoregions. The natural world of Texas is what this podcast is all about. We're Robert and Karen Benson. We select or write all material for each podcast episode and produce the audio that makes it possible. We hope you'll learn something new each time you listen. Most of all, we hope you'll enjoy what you hear.
Episode 003, Identification, Greater and Lesser Yellowlegs. This identification series of podcasts focuses on bird species that are so similar in appearance and behavior that they are difficult to separate in the field. The greater and the lesser yellowlegs are two challenging species you will find in Texas during migration and winter. Both species nest north of the U.S.-Canada border in meadows and open boreal forests. Both begin migrating south, arriving in Texas in early July through November to spend the winter. The yellowlegs are alert and wary watchdogs among shorebirds whose loud and ringing calls alert the wading community that an intruder is nearby. You have your best opportunity to learn these two species when you find them side by side at rain pools, muddy banks, freshwater ponds, lakes, water impoundments, and slow-moving streams. The first thing to note is the significant size difference when compared to each other. The greater yellowlegs are almost willet-sized, whereas the lesser yellowlegs are smaller, more like a killdeer. This size difference is difficult to see when the species are not seen together. The greater is a more robust bird with thicker legs, a larger head, and a longer bill. The lesser has a thin straight bill, whereas the greater's bill is often slightly upturned. The bill length compared to the width of the head, in profile, is a significant field mark. The bill length of the lesser yellowlegs is nearly the width of the bird's head, maybe slightly longer. The greater yellowleg's bill is 1.5 times longer than its head width. Aside from the thicker bill of the greater, there is another feature you may notice. The greater has a two-tone bill, lighter color near the base and darker near the tip, and the lesser has a black bill. You will need binoculars or a spotting scope, and good lighting to see these differences. Now put away your optics and your camera and close your eyes. Your ears are one of the best ways to tell the difference between the lesser and greater yellowlegs. Here are some examples of the call of the two species. These calls are issued mostly during flights, but sometimes while feeding on the ground. See if you can hear a difference between these two. First, the greater yellowlegs. Now, the lesser yellowlegs. The greater yellowlegs has a higher pitched, more strident voice and tends to call in 3 or 4 syllable phrases, while the lesser yellowlegs has a softer voice and issues shorter 1 or 2 syllable phrases with a more hesitant tone. Of course, the birds can, and do, violate the number of syllables rule from time to time. It takes a bit of practice to hear these differences, but it's always fun to learn bird songs and calls. Let's hear another couple of examples. Notice how the first recording started with a long series of one-note calls. That was a lesser yellowlegs. I've never heard a greater yellowlegs utter a series of one-note calls like that, so that's one thing to listen for. The second recording was a greater yellowlegs. Let's do 2 more calls for practice. The first recording was a Greater Yellowlegs and the second was a Lesser. If you have not had the chance to listen to these two similar species before, take a day to visit wet places all along the Texas coast on a pleasant late fall or winter day. You'll almost certainly find some yellowlegs on which to practice. If you like these podcasts about wild and natural things in Texas, please consider following us. Also, visit our website at www.reflectionstexas.com. You'll find much more about Karen and Robert and what they're doing to enhance the appreciation of wild Texas.